which is pretty old for his time. And that's a picture of the monument. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Organon, which is the book that he wrote. In the first paragraph, what he says is that the physician's highest calling, his only calling, is to make sick people healthy, to heal as it is termed. So he's not saying that as a practitioner, as a person who's trying to help other people, that your primary purpose is to make money. Your primary purpose is to sell product. Your primary purpose is to do any of these things. What he's saying is your primary purpose as a human being with an intention to help other people is to help people who are suffering get well. Okay? And then he follows down from that. In the second paragraph, he defines what healing is. He says, healing, the highest ideal of cure or healing, is rapid, gentle, and permanent. And it's to remove the totality of disease in the shortest, surest, least harmful way, according to clearly comprehensible principles. And so he spends the majority of this book laying out those principles as guidelines for us. And so if we look at health, health is the most valuable thing you have. You can have all the money you want, but if you're not healthy, life can become burdensome, right? Your ability to enjoy life, which means your family, your friends, the money you earn, every breath you take, sunsets, a good night's sleep, or food, is dependent on your health. Okay? Your ability to feel gratitude, love, joy, contentment, and peace and clarity depend on your state of health and well-being, which comes directly from your inner nature of who you are. Okay? And this is actually going to tie into homeopathy. So homeopathy, it has been used to treat the vast majority of human illnesses over the past 200 years. Hahnemann and his contemporaries used homeopathy to routinely treat things like cholera successfully, pneumonia, typhoid fever, syphilis, psychosis, arthritis, meningitis. Hahnemann was one of the first people to realize that people who were mentally insane, they weren't responsible for their actions. So if you had somebody who would become psychotic and attack somebody else, you don't just chain them up and sequester them from society for the rest of their lives. You have to endeavor to understand that they're not responsible for that, and that you have to be able to help them. And so he was one of the first doctors to have real compassion for people who were considered insane. And some of the medicines he came up with were very effective at helping people get out of these states. Okay. So that was then, that was over the past 200 years. And today, homeopathy is primarily either used by lay persons to relieve symptoms of mild ailments like colds and sore throats and otitis media or earaches. Or if you have a license to practice medicine or healthcare, we use homeopathy to treat acute and chronic conditions, mild to severe, long-standing conditions, things that last from 2 to 3 years to decades, a person's entire life. Conditions like depression and IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, psoriasis, anxiety disorders, sleep disorders, heart disease, liver disorders. I mean, I see some of these things in my own practice, and I've gone to conferences where people present cured cases of people with congestive heart failure, where they have all of these symptoms, their chem panels are abnormal, and then after homeopathic treatment, everything's normalized. And the person's state of health and sense of well-being are better. Some more interesting points. Most prominent homeopaths were MDs. Today, not so much. There are a lot of people who just have an interest in it, and they'll get a diplomat or a certificate in homeopathy and practice that way. But back in Kent's day, most of the homeopaths were medical doctors. And homeopathy really, it works best, or it works most effectively when the characteristic experience or state is perceived in the patient. Hahnemann called the symptoms that are most characteristic strange, rare, and peculiar. It's where we get the SRP, okay? So what's strange, rare, and peculiar about the person's particular condition is what we're looking for and what we're going to prescribe on, okay? And the remedy that matches most closely this characteristic state or experience is called the simillimum, okay? It's called the most similar remedy, which is the simillimum. Similar remedies, which are remedies that are close but don't match all of the symptoms, are called similar remedies. Okay, so if somebody has a headache and they feel flushed, their head feels full and it's throbbing, and if they go out into the sunlight and it gets worse, if you give belladonna, the patient's going to get some relief. The person will experience some relief, even though they may need the remedy gloninum or lachesis, which also have a full, flushed, and throbbing headache and is worse from the sun. So we have to look for the totality of symptoms to be able to differentiate, say, belladonna from gloninum from lachesis, which are 3 different remedies. Belladonna being from a plant from the Solanaceae family, gloninum being a remedy, it's a mineral compound, and lachesis being from a snake, actually snake poison. Okay. So just a few words on critical thinking and skepticism. This is important because Hahnemann was very open-minded. He was open-minded to everything, and I believe he was truly scientific in that approach, that even if something seems implausible, you still approach it with an open mind and you look at it critically. If you look at something skeptically, it means you've kind of closed off to the idea that it could be true, and in that way you shut yourself off to possibilities, okay? So I would urge you and everybody else that's listening to be critical thinkers and try not to be so skeptical, because some things that may not seem like they're true and end up being true. Okay. So the way that homeopathy is practiced, we have acute prescribing. Acute prescribing is when we are giving a remedy for a very self-limiting condition, and the condition's relatively non-life-threatening. Okay? With acute prescribing, it's more forgiving and there's less precision needed. So like in the example I gave, you can give somebody belladonna when they might need gloninum, and they will get some benefit from the remedy. Okay? In chronic or constitutional prescribing, there's a little more training that's needed and experience in order to understand the principles of homeopathy and to understand the law of cures and to understand miasms and all of these other elements of homeopathy that all come together and help us to help people that are suffering from chronic conditions. Okay? So, for example, in India, you can get a medical degree in homeopathy, and they have hospitals there where somebody can go in, say with a fever, they'll do blood work, they'll do a chest x-ray, they'll give the diagnosis of, say, pneumonia, and then they'll treat with homeopathy and not antibiotics. And they get really good results. Okay. Also, when you're dealing with more chronic conditions, there should be some training in pathology and pathophysiology in order to understand what it is that you're actually dealing with.